coming closer, inshallah. That would be much better. You can go for the walls before everyone takes them. Otherwise, you're going to have to sit in the middle and then strain your back, feel very tired. And by the end of the class, you don't even bother to come back again another Monday. Barakallah fikum. But I'm wondering why young kids are literally on the corners. Why? Especially him. Your grandfather over here is right in the middle. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على خاتم الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه والتابعين ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين أما بعد رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي آمين يا رب العالمين. Inshallah ta'ala, hopefully I won't sound very technical today compared to last week. Last week was quite technical because those type of issues are issues which I would say for the generation that's coming, like them, him, they don't understand a thing of what I'm saying because they don't relate to these problems. The elders do, and they've been through this and they've seen it, where people have been literally refuting one another just because they say this is right, that is wrong, don't follow this. Refutations, arguments, problems, ongoing wars, and people butting heads between Muslims just because of that. So it was necessary to make it clear when it comes to the issues of appreciating our ancestors. That's why when we talk about school of thoughts, what we follow is an appreciation of our ancestors. And the moment we literally decide to say we don't want to follow a madhab, that is the modern construction. What is the modern construction? The modern construction is literally to defy order. Defying order, I don't know if you can close the door. The Hoover is a bit loud. Barakallah fikum. What is defying orders? Lack of following orders. Is it not following orders of the state? Or is it not following orders of your own home or your community? That's not what it is. It's people not wanting authority. I hope that makes sense. Because anything the law gives you nowadays, you're willing to stand against it. Even if it's in your favor, you want to stand against it because you feel that you are the authority to yourself. So it's all about the self rather than the collective need. The ummah cannot stand without authority. And when we say authority, not having a leader, that's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is us referring back to what Allah wants and what we learned from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and what the Sahaba taught us and what the teachers which came and learned from them gave us. If we don't follow along with that, we are literally meant to fail. There's no question on that. If we decide today to say that what our ancestors did was wrong and we have to change it a little bit, then we're literally, this is following along on the hadith of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, exactly what he said. When you see the ummah literally cursing their ancestors, the previous ummah that existed before them, then just wait for the hour to come. And that's exactly what's happening. So we have to appreciate exactly what we are learning, inshallah, from the madhahib, from the ulama, according to the school of thoughts, how they are divided. As we said, mainly we're going to be focusing on what school of thought? The Maliki school of thought. Barakallahu fikum. You catch that? Barakallahu fikum. Okay. I would advise you, especially young ones, literally, come in with a notepad and a pen so that you can write everything down. Understood? That's how you learn. A student that comes empty-handed is not a student. That's how it is normally. I wouldn't really talk to the elders, but I'll talk to you. Alright? The elders literally, they're already busy enough in their heads. The moment they leave here, they don't remember anything that I said. And especially the one that comes back and mashallah, they have a big grin and smile on their face. They know nothing. Their minds have gone empty. They don't even remember exactly what happened last week. Memory is full, yes. Always full capacity. And sometimes full capacity to a level no sleep at night. So don't blame them. I would blame you too. And the others who will be here. And I don't know why Abid is not here today anyway. Khairan inshallah. Now let's get into the book itself rather than delving in other issues inshallah. قال الشيخ الإمام العالم العلامة عبد الباري العشماوي الرفاعي رحمه الله تعالى. The Sheikh, the one who wrote the book, known as Abdul Bari al-Ashmawi. We explained about him slightly, and we mentioned that he comes from Manufa, isn't it? From Egypt, and mashallah, Abid is here. From Egypt, and at the same time, he was a very great scholar whom we don't have a lot of his biography and background. We only have some of what the Mashayikh have mentioned to us, and we mentioned some of them. And he's from among the scholars who are the late scholars to the end of the Ottoman dynasty, because by the time he passed away and towards the Ottoman dynasty was literally 100 and a bit of years, and khalas, that's it. Intaha al-amr. Lakin Allah granted him qabul on what he has done. The little of what he wrote, regardless of how unknown he is, but the ulama have done an extensive work on literally translating and interpreting and explaining the book. And alhamdulillah, that's what we are taking from their fruits. He says that سألني بعض الأصدقاء أن أعمل مقدمة في الفقه على مذهب الإمام مالك بن أنس رضي الله عنه فأجبته إلى ذلك راجيا للثواب. What does he mean by this? Some of his friends, they asked him to do what? To write a short, literally, introduction. When he said أعمل مقدمة, it's not basically a book which you can depend on and say, Alhamdulillah, I've studied the madhab, I don't need more. No. The muqaddimah meant in their time is literally just an introduction to the madhab. But in our times today, is what you can rely on as a lay person, so that you do not fall into what? Into a prohibition while you are fulfilling your salah. Because he is not going to cover anything besides salah and some parts of siyam. That's it. That's how you call it muqaddimah, introduction to the madhab. But for you and I today, at least it covers the necessary parts that we need for you and I to do what? To pray correctly. That's what we need. Now, when he says this, what does that mean? للكتابة حتى تكتب شيئا هناك سبعة أسباب. For you to be able to write, you have to have 7 reasons. 7 good reasons. If you have any of these and they are legit, then you can write. If it's none of these reasons, then there's no reason for you to write. There's a book known as Adabul Katib wal Kitaba. I forgot exactly who is the author, but this book is related to what? What are the etiquettes of writing? When do you write? Do you just write anything just because you want to write? In today's day and age, everybody writes. Oh, qila wa qala wa la yuqalu wa nonsense. Everybody writes everything. Everything that's not said, whatever someone said, anything which, whether it is authentic, not authentic, everybody writes. And writing is not just on books, or just you find them in papers from one page to another. But if you go to Twitter, you go to Instagram, what is it, Instagram? What? Threads, isn't it? Everybody is writing. And somebody literally might be copying something exactly said by the other. And subhanallah, how ignorant the ummah has become, to a level where if someone sees something written just in beautiful words, khalas, mashallah, phenomenal. Did he literally have to write? في ماذا تزيد? In what do you add? You're adding on what? You're writing about what? How is it benefiting the ummah at large? Is there a reason for you to write? لذلك قال, he said that some of my friends, تأدبا وكذلك إجابة لهم, out of respect and to respond back to them, they asked me to write a muqaddimah of the madhab, and I responded back to them by writing this. How does he decide to start? And remember, when he writes this, he doesn't refer back to the sources by going through the books, but actually he writes what he has already memorized. Ibn al-Qayyim al-Jawziyah rahmatullahi alayh, he has a whole book, and I forgot the title of it, which he wrote while he was on a journey. And he calls it literally a risala, a small text. How did he write this? He said, while I wrote this, I laugh every time I read it. I wrote this while I forgot my resources at home. I don't remember exactly the sources that I'm writing from, but I can quote back to them and write exactly all of this risala. That's how they were. This is Ibn al-Qayyim al-Jawziyah, the student of whom? Al-Imam Ibn Taymiyyah, rahmatullahi alayh. You look at him, Abdul Bari al-Ashmawi, he writes from the top of his head. That's how smart these people were. لماذا صاحبوا شيخا عارف المسالك يقيه في طريقه المهالك هذه المشايخ وكذلك يذكرهم الله إذا رآهم ويوصلونهم إلى مولاهم. What do these mashayikh do? They connect them back to their Lord all the time, number one. And on top of that, they protect them from falling into that which they shouldn't. And when they have these mashayikh and constantly sitting with people of knowledge, they end up becoming a part of them. That's why it's the famous phrase, show me your friends, I'll tell you who you are. You live with people of money, you'll be a part of them. You live with people of ilm, you'll be a part of them. You live with people of ibadah, you will be like them. And if you live with people of laziness, you'll be lazy one day just like them. So you pick and choose who you have around you. يقول باب نواقض الوضوء, the chapter of the invalidations of wudu. Things which literally ما ينقض وضوءك, that which takes away your wudu. Now the norm is not to start with what takes away your wudu. لأن الإمام التتائي, he has his famous مقالة that he writes in a book known as Al-Risala, if I'm not wrong, written by Al-Tattai. He explains that, look, when he wrote about this, he literally came with that which one has not even pictured yet, and he explained about it before it's even provided. What does that mean? It's a bit technical. You're trying to picture an image which you haven't even lived, something which you haven't even practiced yet. What is that? He was supposed to bring in wudu before he even provides that which nullifies wudu. And if you look at the books of fiqh start with tahara and wudu, then it provides you those which nullify the wudu. Which means to say, how do you enter in a state of wudu? Like basically, how do you enter into that state? There's something called water, miyah, the types of water that you need to use for you to fulfill your ablution. Understood? And then once you understand the types of water that what to avoid, what to follow, what to use, what is okay you can use, but it's best to avoid all of those, then you come now to the actual action itself, which is the tasawwur, and to do what? To do wudu. Because you can imagine now, this is how I do wudu. And the ulama, when you look at their books, they start with something called wudu immediately first. فَصْلٌ وَتَحْصُلُ الطَّهَارَةُ بِمَا. They start with tahara first of all, and tahara is with water. After they provide water purification, they start talking about fara'idul wudu 16. They provide the fara'id of wudu. And after they provide fara'idul wudu, some of them say 17, some of them say less than that, some of them say 16. They differ on that. Lakin al-asah min al-kull is all of them. The one which is correct is all of them. Because there's only some slight issues here and there which do not really do anything to your wudu, but you need to follow along. However, he decided to start with that which nullifies your wudu. Now imagine a new Muslim who enters into Islam, you tell them there's something called wudu and this is how you break it. He doesn't even know how to do wudu. How do you tell him that this is how you break it? لذلك قال الإمام التتائي هو قدم التصديق قبل التصوير. He does not provide you with the image of what is exactly he's talking about, but he actually provides you with that which nullifies that which he's talking about. It doesn't make sense. But the ulama say it's fine. Even if we started with this, it's not a problem. Like Muhammad al-Amir in his Hashiyah, he provides that it's okay. Because this is a little bit of a logical thinking manner that the ulama, why do they start with this and that? So that they can make matters easy for the Muslims. However, he started with nawaqid al-wudu. We can't change that. But you are Muslims, you know. When we talk about the nullifiers of wudu, that which invalidates your wudu, you know, okay, we're talking about wudu, which when you go to the washroom, this is how I start. I start with washing my hands, I wash my face, isn't it? Do I need to define wudu to you? Do I? No. This refers to the one who just embraced Islam and they don't know what wudu means. You mix them up. So if you're teaching someone who just embraced Islam, how do you start? You teach them that which they need to know first. How do you do wudu? What do you require to do wudu? You require clean water, and you require the steps of wudu. This is how you do it from head to toe. And after you've done that, that's when you teach them, okay, so you know how to do wudu? You know the type of water to use? Okay. You can nullify your wudu by doing the so and so and so and so. These are the ones that take away your wudu, invalidate your wudu. But instead, he decided to start with the nullifiers of wudu, which becomes a little bit complex for others. But for you and I, will understand each other, inshallah. What does he start with? I'lam, waffaqaka Allah. Bear in mind, acknowledge, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, may He grant you tawfiq, anna nawaqid al-wudu'i, that indeed the nullifiers of wudu' ala qismain. I'm trying to be very gentle here. That's why I'm talking really slowly. Otherwise, I talk really fast. I think some of you have already spotted that. Like last time, isn't it? Yeah. I run if I want. But I'm trying to be very slow because it sounds a bit technical, but actually it's easy. I'lam waffaqaka Allah. Acknowledge that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed you, by the way, granted you tawfiq. Anna nawaqid al-wudu, that indeed the nullifiers of wudu, that which invalidates your wudu, ala qismain. They divide to two. What does that mean? Now there are so many issues that he has not mentioned here. For example, if you have continuity, basically urine incontinence. What is urine incontinence? Salas al-bawl. Salas means when you cannot hold on to your urine. Understood? Sometimes it's not just urine. Some people, I've seen people literally firsthand, that they cannot hold on to air. They're always releasing air. There's nothing they can do about it. Do they do this by choice? No. Choicelessly. It's a type of illness that they have. Some people cannot hold on to their mani, the sperms. And some people cannot hold on to their madhi. Now, why am I mentioning this to you? So that you may realize, Ali ibn Abi Talib, radiallahu ta'ala anhu, wa ardah, he told one of the Sahabas, could you go to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Remember, Ali ibn Abi Talib married whom? Fatima radiallahu anha. He married the daughter of whom? The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He told the Sahaba, go to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and ask him for me this question. I'm a man that literally experiences a lot of what? Ejaculation of madhi. This is pre-sperm. It's not the sperm itself. It's the type of sperm that comes out of you when you start desiring. It's not sperm itself. It's either you've engaged into foreplay, married men can understand that, and women as well, they experience this, or you've literally engaged into a lot of thought, maybe you're imagining your absent wife so much, and then you entered into that state. Now,
wet dream.
It's not a wet dream. Not a wet dream. It's basically a wet dream is what leads you to actual sperm ejaculation. Understood? But this one is not that. This one is pre-sperm. Now, not everyone experiences it. Ali ibn Abi Talib tells the Sahaba, go ask Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, I'm this type of man. The moment I'm close to Fatima, or maybe I am just thinking about it, this is what happens to me. I cannot hold on to it. What do I do in this case? Because he had this more or less of an incontinence where he cannot hold on to it. Does he constantly do all of that? Or does it depend? So all of those masail, they are not mentioned here. Because this book is only for beginners, literally young kids, as we said earlier. For example, mas'alatul ru'af we mentioned. Issue of when you have nosebleed, it's not mentioned here. For example, mas'alatul hayd wal nifas, ad-dima, when it comes to women's circulation of blood, they have postnatal blood, they have the normal menstruation, they have all of that. It's not mentioned here. How do you cover all of those? All of those are part of what? The package and parcel of tahara, and they're not mentioned. Oh, understood? We're just going to mention some of what's necessary. لذلك, if you go to the hawashi, the explanation of the explanation, these of what I've mentioned to you, they are provided in there. But not for the student that literally just have started the madhab. Or maybe they've started their journey in fiqh and they don't have any idea. They don't enter into these issues. So what does he mention, just to begin with? Simply put, he mentioned that the two types of nullifiers of wudu are the ahdath. What are ahdath? Direct impurities. They are impurities by themselves. And then we have number two, those are known as asbabu ahdath. You have the text with you, isn't it? Anyone else who has the text? Inshallah, we'll try to see if we can get a number of texts with us, and then we can distribute them. Otherwise, some of you will have to buy them, inshallah. And if you're serious enough, I would advise you to buy it. How much does it cost? How much does it cost? £2? Literally £2. You don't even buy a piece of burger nowadays for £2. Come on, literally. You can't, let alone burger, you can't even buy 3 wings for £2. That's how bad the economy is. So how much will £2 cost you? Nothing. £2 is literally not even similar to 2p. Understood? Knowledge is that easy to buy, but it requires a lot of your dedication, inshallah. The second type is asbabu ahdath, that which leads to impurity. Are they impurities per se? Are they actual impurities? No, they're not. They're not actual impurities. Now, something that the scholars, they have differed on, they've mentioned something called ar-riddah. What is ar-riddah? They've mentioned ar-riddah, which is someone apostating. Do you understand the meaning of apostating? Apostating? Do you know what apostating? If you don't know, if you do know, just raise your hand up. If you don't know, there's no shame on that. We need, these are a little bit of, if they're a little bit of some technical terms you need to know. Understood? Apostating is someone that leaves the fold of Islam and then they decide to come back. Okay, an apostate, A-P-O-S-T-A-T-E, is a person that enters into leave the fold of Islam and decides to come back again. Or they leave the fold of Islam and never come back. They say that some of the ulama, they've differed on this to say that this is not even part of those that which are regarded as the reasons of nullifying your wudu. You cannot include this. But the reality is, yes, it is part of it. Why did they say this? Because they said that the moment you leave the fold of Islam, let alone your wudu being nullified, but actually all of your deeds are nullified. They're all invalidated straight away. The salah that you did previously, not accepted. The fasting that you did previously, all of them are gone. You've destroyed them. So when you come back to Islam again, you're starting afresh, like literally as if you've done nothing throughout your life. Understood? Ar-riddah. They mention another one, I would have mentioned it to you, inshallah, because it's still part of the package of those which lead to the nullification of wudu. So the first of which, the first type, which are they by themselves, they are nullifiers of wudu, as he mentions over here, they are three. They are five. فَأَمَّا الْأَحْدَاثُ, those which literally take you to nullify, to invalidate your wudu, to break your wudu, they are five. Understood? Directly. And they are also regarded as impurities. They are not just those which break your wudu, they are regarded of those which are part of impurity. They make you dirty. You have to clean yourself from them. What are they? He said that ثَلَاثَةٌ مِّنَ الْقُبُلِ, 3 of them, they are extracted from your front private part. What are they? First of all, al-madhyu. We mentioned that. What is al-madhyu? Al-madhyu is pre-seminal fluid. It's the fluid that comes out of you, which is not sperms. But it does come out of you because of what? Desire. You thought a lot. You engaged into foreplay with your spouse. No haram relationship. And Allah mentions about boyfriends and girlfriends in the Quran that they're haram. In the Quran. If someone asks you, does Allah talk about boyfriends and girlfriends in the Quran? Yes, He does. What does He say? مُحْصِنِينَ غَيْرَ مُسَافِحِينَ وَلَا مُتَّخِذِي أَخْدَانٍ. What does وَلَا مُتَّخِذِي أَخْدَانٍ? That they do not take friends which are the opposite gender compared to them to be a part of their lives. And this was being referred to men. What about ladies? وَلَا مُتَّخِذَاتِ أَخْدَانٍ. Understood? In Surah An-Nisa, the surah of the women, Allah mentions the women, that they do not take friends which is the opposite gender. They don't take the opposite gender as their friends. They don't take men as their friends to be a part of their life. They don't do that. Chaste women that have honor and dignity, they don't do that. And the next surah after Surah An-Nisa, which is Surah Al-Ma'idah, quote unquote surah known as the table, Allah says, وَلَا مُتَّخِذِي أَخْدَانٍ, men that do not take women to be their friends. These are chaste men. Is that very clear? So the idea of boyfriend and girlfriend does not exist. Don't lie to yourself. Young men, don't do that. And young women also. For those who will be watching this later on, inshallah. So bear this in mind. For those who engage into any type of activity, whether it's in their mind, whether it's physically, they might experience this. When they experience this, they have nullified their wudu. That's number one. Number two is al-wadiyu. Now al-wadiyu is not similar to al-madhiyu or al-maniyu. What is al-wadiyu? Al-wadiyu is the type of fluid that is literally very colorless actually, that happens to come out of you. Is not semen, it's not semen, basically sperms, or pre-seminal fluid at all. No. It's a type of fluid that comes out of you either at the end of your urine as a man, or when you're extremely tired, or maybe you come out of carrying a heavy load of goods. For example, people that work in, let's say, warehouses, people that carry loads of goods from trucks, and they're very heavy on them, they cause their bodies to become extremely tired. They put a lot of tension on their bodies. So when sometimes they notice that this type of fluid comes out of them, is not pre-seminal fluid nor sperm themselves, it's actual fluid out of tiredness. Or when you're extremely tired, you will experience this. Or at the end of your urination, you will see this, inshallah. You see this when this happens. Understood? Al-madhiyu and al-wadiyu, we've mentioned this. The last one from among these three is al-bawlu, which is urine itself. It's not many. Why do I say not many? Because many, which is sperms, they require from you not just wudu. What else does it require from you? A shower, ghusl. It requires from you ghusl, isn't it? So those which require from you just wudu, they are three. Now this seems very easy, right? It's straightforward. Three. Madhiyu, wadiyu, al-madhiyu, and al-wadiyu, and al-bawl. Madhi, which is pre-seminal fluid, al-wadiyu, which is the type of fluid that comes out of you when you're extremely tired or at the end of your urination, and al-bawlu, which is urine in itself. Very easy, sah? But this is the tricky part. If I ask you, do I need wudu or ghusl? For example, mathalan, like just 5 questions. Al-madhi, wudu and ghusl or wudu only? Which one? Wudu only. Al-mani, wudu and ghusl or ghusl only? Both. For example, our students, they studied fiqh, alhamdulillah, they studied the whole book and they finished it. But then I asked them at the end, if I do tamadmud, which is literally rinsing my mouth, isn't it? Gargling water. If I do that, is it an obligation in wudu or is it a sunnah in wudu? Some of them said it's an obligation in wudu, whereas actually it's a sunnah in wudu. That's the tricky part. Because for example, I'll tell you, this sounds very easy, but this is where it becomes tricky. Let's say you woke up and Salatul Fajr is finishing in the next 5 minutes. You look at your state, your clothes that you can wear on top is literally a little bit far. And maybe you live in a mansion and your toilet is literally 15 meters away from your bedroom. Or it's in the bedroom, but it's really far. Because your bedroom is like a football stadium. Mathalan. Imagine that. By the time you get to the toilet and the wudu area, you do wudu, come back, wear your qamis, you've lost 4 minutes, you're left with 1 minute. How do you catch that salah? You have to reduce on the amount of things that you need to do in wudu. You need to do only the obligations. Now the trick question is, what are the obligations of wudu? Understood? For example, what are the sunnahs of wudu? How do you avoid the sunnahs and just do the obligations of wudu so you can catch the salah? Because catching the salah is far more important than you doing the sunnah of wudu itself. Is that very clear? Or do I need to repeat myself? It's very clear? That's how fiqh trains you. Fiqh trains you to become a bit smart in your deen. And it makes you think and open your mind. Now something I want to mention to you, which I did not mention, let me just go a little bit further and then come back to what I want to mention to you. وَإِثْنَانِ مِنَ الدُّبُرِ وَقَالَ رَحِمَهُ اللَّهُ تَعَالَى وَإِثْنَانِ مِنَ الدُّبُرِ. And 2 which come from the back passage. We said 3 come from the front passage and 2 now come from the back passage. And what are they? Al-gha'id, excrement, when you go to the toilet for number 2. Kids understand that, isn't it? Excrement. And the second one is ar-rih, when you release wind. If you release wind from your back passage, your wudu is nullified. Here comes the question now. When he mentioned nawaqidul wudu, basically he started with the nullifiers of wudu, that which invalidates your wudu. This word has a definition according to the ulama, the scholars. What do they say? They say that ما ينقض الوضوء, that which nullifies your wudu, لكن ما هو بنفسه وما هو بغير نفسه, that which nullifies the wudu directly by itself, and that which does not nullify the wudu directly but actually still nullifies. Because what we've covered up to now are the things that directly nullify your wudu, because they are what? Impure in themselves. You have to avoid them. Let's say, for example, you might not have gone to the toilet, maybe, or maybe you haven't literally you haven't released anything from your body, isn't it? Whether from your front passage or your back passage. But maybe a child came to you, a 3-year-old child, and they urinated on their trousers and they sat on you. And that urine which they have on their own clothes passed by to your clothes. Now, are you pure or are you impure as well? You're unclean. You have to go clean yourself, isn't it? So you know that these, as long as they're not only just nullifiers, but they're actually impure by themselves. Now there's something that the ulama, they say, لِلتَّعْرِيفِ أَن يَكُونَ مَانِعًا وَجَامِعًا, at the same time. A definition has to be collective of everything, but at the same time exclusive of everything. What does that mean? It includes and excludes. A definition has to include what is necessary and exclude which is unnecessary. So when they mention about nawaqidul wudu, the nullifiers of wudu, what do they say? They say that the nullifiers of wudu are these. Lakin how about the same substance, which is excrement or urine or wind, they come out in ways that are not the normal ways. من المخرج المعتاد مثلا. What do they say? For example, if we look at the sharh, which is Sharh al-Jawahir al-Zakiyah, Al-Allama ibn Turki rahimahullah ta'ala, what does he say? He says over here, وهو ما لا ينقض الوضوء بنفسه أسباب أحداث. فأما الأحداث التي تنقض الوضوء بنفسها, that which nullify your wudu, وبدأ بها لأنها الأصل. And then he mentions over here something that he takes from the Hashiyah. He says that in the Hashiyah it means من الخارج المعتاد أو من المخرج المعتاد. What does المخرج المعتاد mean? That which comes from the natural passage. It comes from the natural exit. When you urinate, where do you expect your urine to come out from? The front passage, isn't it? When you release excrement, you expect it to come from your back passage, isn't it? When you release wind, you expect it to come from your back passage at the same time. But how about if you release wind from your front passage? And women experience this a lot. Does it nullify their wudu? Yes or no? How sure are you? It doesn't. It doesn't, because it's not natural. Understood? It doesn't nullify their wudu. It's not just the idea of wind, it's actually the idea of where it comes from as well. Then they talk about something very sensitive, and I know this is very graphic, but I'll give you an example as well. A woman that is married to a man. The man is corrupt in the mind, who is not satisfied with her nature and decides to use other means which are not the actual means. I think adults understand what I'm talking about. When they have intimacy with them, they don't go through they don't use anything natural. They don't use the natural method, but they actually use different methods which are prohibited actually and unnatural. Now, for example, if they are to release fluid through these ways which are unnatural, not expected. For example, if you have intimacy with your wife, you expect that because you had that relationship with her, she might have a release of certain maybe fluids from her which are from the natural passages. Sah? That's how it is. But if you decide, may Allah forbid, if you decide to do it the unnatural way, and then they do that, they release those fluids from the wrong passage, does it nullify their wudu? No, it doesn't. Because it's not from the passage which is intended. Because this takes us to another issue. What if a person does not feel well, they go to the hospital, and now they have a stomy bag? Do you know what a stomy bag is? A stomy bag is literally, they have a plastic bag for them to pass either urine or maybe excrement and that. They cannot take it out from their natural passage. The ulama have differed on this. Some say it does, some say it doesn't. Because it depends on where it comes from and how does it come out of. Understood? We're going to talk about this inshallah ta'ala in our next class. But I don't want to bombard you with too much. That's why you need to understand this. I hope we are together.
Yeah. Very interesting.
Yes, we're still together. We're still together, right? I hope we're still together. It's not rocket science. It's very simple. Why am I mentioning to you some issues which are sensitive? I'm not telling you this from my own pocket. I'm not taking it out of my own pocket. I was just reading about this 20 minutes ago. From Hashiyatul Safti, Hashiyatul Amir, Hashiyatul Adu. And I was also reading this from Al-Jawahir Al-Zakiyah. And I was Al-Minah Al-Ilahiyah. I've been reading from all of these books and the ulama mentioned these. And look at my hand. Can you see my hand shaking? I find it quite sensitive to mention. I'll be honest with you. But because it's Masail Fiqhiyah related to our deen, you have to understand them. Now for young ones, they might not understand this. And okay, it's good. But for adults, they need to know this. Because majority of you are adults and some of you have grey hair more than me. I'm starting to see them and I'm questioning myself, how old am I? Understand that. So coming back to the book itself now, other than these side, not tangents, side ties which relate to what we were just talking about. Because we mentioned what? Urine, we mentioned excrement, we mentioned wadi and madhi and all of these. If they are to come out from ways which are not natural, mathalan, are we to say that this person has nullified his wudu or her wudu? We don't say that. For example, like a man, sometimes, there was a case recently of one of our family members, subhanallah, may Allah not show us this. He had a problem with his bowel movements, his urine movement. Now, the exit had an issue. He's literally, his bladder has an issue. He went to the hospital, they operated on him, and subhanallah, what happened is that rather than curing him, they blocked the bladder. From him urinating from the front, he started urinating from the back. Imagine that. Now, does he have to do wudu every time? Because remember, if this happens to him, and it happens from the back passage, it's not the natural passage, first of all. Second of all, you've got to realize he wouldn't have any control of what comes out of him. Understood? Now, beyond this, there's the issue of people having stones on their liver. I think this is very common. People know this. Now, if this comes out of you, normally comes out from the back passage. Some of them experience it from their front passage. Do you regard this as nullifiers of wudu? The ulama also have differed on this. Not every time it would be what? A reason for you to go repeat your wudu again. So do you notice how deep fiqh is? That's why I'm trying to show you the beauty of fiqh, so you may realize how much it covers your life as a Muslim. We haven't even gone anywhere, just literally 2 lines, and this is how much you need to know. Is that very clear? The ulama say, Sahib al-Butlayhiyya, what did I tell you last time? If there is any knowledge that deserves to be honored, it's the knowledge of, remember this, the knowledge of fiqh. The knowledge of fiqh, barakallah fiqh. Guys, seriously, uncle over here is much more clever than all of you. That's her. Yeah, you can defend yourself on that. And subhanallah, the last week's class was horrendous. The recording wasn't really good. Each one of us know that. If you went back to revise, you would get nothing. You would get nothing. And I have the audio, I forgot to send it to you. I'll send it to you inshallah in the group for the previous class. And I would advise you to go through it and take your time in taking notes inshallah. Yes. If there is any knowledge that deserves to be honored, then surely it's the knowledge of fiqh. Why fiqh? Because fiqh literally governs your life. All of these issues, if you don't have any idea of them, how do you protect your salah mathalan? Let alone anything else. Understood? So let's go back inshallah and we're going to conclude with this, otherwise it's going to be too much. The next one he mentions, قال رحمه الله تعالى وأما أسباب الأحداث, and for those which are the reasons of nullifying your wudu, not those which directly nullify your wudu, those which lead to the invalidation of your wudu. What does he say? وَهُمْ, he says فَالنَّوْمُ. Number one, so there's a number of them that he doesn't say is 5. There's a number of them. So he cannot mention each one of them. As we said, he writes this from the top of his head. And for the students that literally want to become real students, such as Abid, and I believe the two of you, I advise you to memorize the book. Before you understand Arabic, you memorize the book. It's how many pages? Let me confirm with you. Literally not even 64. It finishes as... It's about 40 pages, khalas. 40 pages. And you might be thinking I'm being ridiculous. Yeah, that one, yeah. That tiny book. Understood? That tiny book. You memorize that. Elders, you don't have to do that. Don't give yourself a headache. Unless if you want to, Allah will grant you mercy and love, honestly. You will see a very different road. Very different road unlocking around you. That's the honest truth. I don't want to give you the stories of memorization, but I'm going to advise the young ones to do so. You save yourself from dementia when you grow up, and at the same time you're more connected to yourself, which is your deen, when you grow up as well. Because all of this will become a means of protection to your mind and your heart. Understood? Even if you don't understand, for example, you memorize Quran, and tomorrow you're proud of yourself, you memorize Quran. If I ask you to translate to me one page, you can't. But yet you're proud of memorizing Quran, isn't it? But how about if you memorize fiqh and then later on you seek the understanding of it? You'll be proud of yourself even further than memorizing just Quran. And mentioning about memorization and what to start with, I'll come back to your point inshallah at the end. He mentions over here, وَأَمَّا أَسْبَابُ الْأَحْدَاثِ, those which literally lead to the nullification of wudu. Number one, he says unknown, which is sleep. What does he refer to sleep? نوم طويل أو قصير إن ثقل لا خف مع قصر وندبا إن يطول. What does that mean? He talks about sleep in itself. Sleep has 4 types of them. Not every type of sleep you just nullify your wudu. لذلك قال وهو على 4 أقسام. Sleep, there are 4 types. They're not only, it's not one type of sleep. For example, if I sit here and nod, babe, you've fallen asleep, isn't it? Have you nullified your wudu? No. How about if I literally sleep in the masjid like this and I go, have I nullified my wudu? In the Shafi'i madhab, you haven't. In the Shafi'i madhab, you haven't. And he has a hadith for this. He has a hadith for this. He does. But it depends. Understood? It depends. Is هل المعتبر كيفية الهيئة في الجلسة أو النوم أو المعتبر النوم نفسه? That which we pay attention to, is it the physical position you're in, or do we pay attention to the sleep itself? The sleep itself. Barakallahu feekum. In the Shafi'i madhab, we differ from them for a reason. Because it's not about you falling asleep, and it's not about the position you're in, it's about the state of your mind. Because if the problem is here, then you won't be able to pray. يا أيها الذين آمنوا لا تقربوا الصلاة وأنتم سكارى. Oh, you have believed, do not come close to salah while you are in a state of what? Drunkenness. Which means to say that if you're drunk, your mind is covered. What about sleep? It might not be similar to being drunk, but actually your mind falls into the same position. Your mind gets covered. But then not every time your mind is literally covered with a veil. This is what happens. Sometimes, as we said, there are 4 sleeps. There's nawmun qasirun, number 1. There is short sleep. And number 2, there is nawmun tawilun, long sleep. Now that's another category, isn't it? We said there's 4. But these 4, they fall into either 2. Let's make it very easy. Either it's long sleep or short sleep. There's no other. There's no middle, like you slept only for 5 minutes and say it's short sleep. No, that's not what it is. There's no average sleep, yes. The nawmun tawilun, long sleep. MashaAllah, barakallahu feekum. And short sleep is nawmun qasirun. Understood? Nawmun qasirun, that's short sleep. That's sleeping very short. Now, the issue comes here. If you fall asleep until you have literally lost yourself, like if someone literally calls your name, Ya Adam, Ya Ali, Ya Noor, basically someone calls you by your name and you don't respond back, you're gone. Understood? Another way to know that you have fallen into very deep sleep is you're carrying something and then it fell off. Once it fell off, you don't even remember. If you cannot even wake up, you're gone as well. That's still deep sleep. But what if it fell off and you woke up? Still categorized as what? Deep sleep. Now over here, it doesn't matter whether short or long. Is that very clear? But then comes the issue of you slept but your sleep is light. Mathalan, a father at home literally just decided to lie down on the sofa, on the couch. And then children are running around all the time. You're half asleep, half awake, and you can hear everyone. You can hear the children around. Ibrahim is yelling, maybe for fighting for the remote, and he is maybe the one that's causing all of the trouble in the house. The father can hear it, but then he doesn't have the strength to get up. But then when the mother comes in, the kryptonite comes in the room and says, "Man, wake up." You're like, "Huh? What happened?" You know the kryptonite came in, isn't it? The wife has come, there's nothing you can do about it. You literally wake up as if you didn't sleep. Al-Muhim, your wife comes and wake you up, and then you literally respond back immediately. Even if you're half asleep, like, huh? Like that. Yet you're not asleep. But if that happened for a short period of time, basically that's what we call short sleep, then you haven't nullified your wudu yet. Is that clear? But if it happened for a very long time, basically you went on and on for like 20 minutes, half an hour, 15 minutes, you've been in that state, then it is recommended that you repeat your wudu. But what if you don't repeat your wudu? Would that be okay? Yes, it would. Understood? And we'll stop here, inshaAllah ta'ala. I wouldn't want to give you too much. I just want you to leave and absorb this first. Rather than giving you too much and then aim to finish, that's not the purpose. We aim to do what? To understand and leave with what we have learned. Rather than learning too much and taking nothing out of what the mashayikh has taught us, inshaAllah ta'ala. Wa sallallahu wa sallam wa baraka ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Now something that I want to mention, at the which I promised the brother to mention, and if you have a question you may ask before Salat al-Maghrib, and I would advise you not to go anywhere because it's Maghrib soon. Anyways.
Well, on the leaning position, what?
Yeah.
I go to sleep, then what can you do?
If you go to sleep, but you can hear people coming in, people are seated around you, you can feel everything around you, even if you're half asleep, you're fine. But if you literally fall asleep properly, that when people enter, people go out, you cannot even hear anything, then you have to go repeat your wudu. I hope that's clear. For students that want to become students of knowledge, that literally they want to, I wouldn't say everyone wants to become a student of knowledge. But for the young generation, I would advise them to at least have something in their pockets of their faith, because it's not about knowledge, it's about understanding your faith. Why do you study Arabic? Don't say because I want to understand the Quran. I know it's the ultimate purpose, but that shouldn't be your purpose alone. Because understanding the Quran, there comes four phases of understanding the Quran. Phase number one is just being able to put the words together of understanding the Quran, and actually just understanding the words and the phrases and its surface level meaning. Phase number two of a student of Quran to understand the Quran is now sitting with the scholars and the teachers and the ulama to teach them how to basically surf through the books of tafsir. Understood? So that you can now start decoding and unlock your ability to see through the books of tafsir. That's phase number two. That doesn't make you a student of Quran yet. Phase number three is being able to see through all of the tafasir, the translations or exegeses that exist out there of the Quran. That's phase number three. Once you reach to that level, then you can claim to say that you're a student of Quran. But phase number four is only for Allah whom He wants. And that is knowledge that you cannot attain from any book. Allah opens it up for you in your mind. The closer you are to Allah and the more you dig deeper into the Quran, you will notice that Allah grants you a better understanding of the Quran more than what the tafsir can provide you. Understood? How does it start? It starts with Arabic, yes. But how would you limit yourself to just understand the Quran? In order for you to understand the Quran, you need to be able to decipher hadith. In order for you to understand the Quran, you need to be able to decipher what? Arabic poetry, medieval poetry, not the current poetry. They say even المتنبي هذا الذي عاش في زمن المعاوية لا أدري في الدولة الأموية أو العباسية. He lived at these two dynasties, the Umayyad dynasty or the Abbasid dynasty. I'm not very clear. I don't remember exactly what time frame he lived in. But you notice they even say, regardless of how good his poetry is, they cannot still classify him as to be of those of medieval poetry, of those compared to those who existed before him. Think about it. Because if you are to read, for example, Imru al-Qais, قِفَا نَبْكِ مِنْ ذِكْرَ حَبِيبٍ وَمَنْزِلٍ, he mentions something. For example, I forgot the line as how it goes, but he mentions exactly the phrases that you provide, that Allah says in Surah An-Nur. What does he say? أَوْ كَظُلُمَاتٍ فِي بَحْرِ اللُّجِّيِّ يَغْشَاهُ مَوْجٌ. No. وَالَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا أَعْمَالُهُمْ كَسَرَابٍ بِقِيعَةٍ يَحْسَبُهُ الظَّمْآنُ مَاءً حَتَّى إِذَا جَاءَهُ لَمْ يَجِدْهُ شَيْئًا وَوَجَدَ اللَّهَ عِنْدَهُ فَوَفَّاهُ حِسَابًا. These words are literally used in poetry. Simply, like that. Imagine. And when Allah revealed the Quran, He brought down the Quran to refute their eloquence in Arabic. Isn't it? We know that. So if you dig deeper into the Quran, you notice that you don't just peel the layer of the Quran. You actually need to learn all of the sciences that relate to the Quran. Now, how did, for example, when you go to Mauritania today, how do the students start memorizing? What do they start memorizing? Do they start memorizing Quran? And Mauritania is known as one of the greatest lands of knowledge. You hear a Mauritanian scholar, literally stand aside. Trust me on that. Mauritania. But it's in Africa. What part of Africa is it? Shimal Africa, isn't it? Yeah. North Africa, literally connected to Morocco. You go to Morocco, you jump to Mauritania, it's just there. They share the same desert, isn't it? Alhamdulillah, at least I'm not wrong. I wasn't wrong on that. Look, Mauritanians, when it comes to knowledge. No, Mauritius are different. Yeah. Mauritanian scholars never mess about with them. These people, they're called cassettes of knowledge. No, do you remember cassettes? You put a cassette in a tape player, and then a radio player. They start talking. That's how they are. قال الله تعالى يا أيها الذين آمنوا إن جاءكم فاسق بنبأ فتبينوا قال ابن عباس رضي الله تعالى عنهما في تفسيرها. That's exactly how they speak. If you don't keep up with them, you wouldn't understand a thing. Now, how do these scholars start memorizing? What do they start memorizing? They start memorizing poetry, not Quran. You're shocked. They start memorizing poetry. Why do they say this? They do this for a reason, because they know that when a student grows up, this young man or young girl would grow up to read the Quran. Memorizing the Quran is much easier than memorizing poetry. And poetry allows you to get some ease in pronunciation of letters. Because poetry is hard. I'll be honest with you. Understood? Poetry is a bit hard. ويوم عقرت للعذارى مطيتي فيا عجبا لرحلها المتحمل يظل العذارى يرتمين بلحمها وشحم كهداب الدمقس المفتل ويوم دخلت الخدر خدر عنيزة فقالت ماذا لك الويلات إنك مرجلي. What have you done يا امرأ القيس? I don't want to mention it. There's a lot of ghazal, basically romantic scenes with Imru al-Qais. This man was something else. However, you notice that when you read poetry, it sounds a bit complex. But this is exactly what helps the students as they grow up to be able to memorize Quran quickly. So they start with poetry. Not everyone starts with what? Starts with Quran. Now, do I advise to do that? In the Western world, no. I advise you to start with Quran. But while you're memorizing Quran, it's not necessary for a student to memorize Quran and just finish the Quran first without even looking into other sciences. No. The student that memorizes Quran, they have to look into other sciences and memorize them as well. This helps them long term. Understood? I'll give you a simple example. How would you make a student just memorize Quran and you expect them tomorrow to be a hafiz? They enter into the mimbar, pulpit over here, they start leading people salah, and they don't even know whether they are in a state of tahara, whether if they make a mistake, how they correct their salah. And that's exactly what we have as an ummah today. We have young musallin today, as long as they've reached the age of bulugh, puberty, they lead salah. They don't even understand how to correct their salah, and you expect them to be the one that lead. It doesn't work that way. For you to be an imam, you have to qualify. وعشرة شرائط الإمام فذكر بالعقل والإسلام وقدرة والعلم بالذي يلزم من فقه وقراءة محتلم. What does that mean? There are conditions of the imam, 10 of them. I've mentioned this a number of times. And one of them is having at least some understanding of fiqh which relate to you, to your salah. Understood? And you can only decipher fiqh as a student of knowledge or a student of Quran by memorizing the books of fiqh. If not all, at least one. And after memorizing it, you study Arabic after that. And when you study Arabic, you see the beauty of what you've memorized, inshallah. Is that very clear? Inshallah ta'ala. Barakallahu fikum. Does anyone have a question, or you're so bored of my voice?
Regarding the point, there's some audios that they're making that into like a poem.
Yeah.
Also like
Yes, you do, yeah.
That's very good for them. It sounds nice.
أنت من المغرب صح؟ من المغرب حبيبي. تقرؤون ابن عاشر هناك من صغركم. They read Ibn Ashir from their very young age. Brothers from Morocco, children that are at the age of 9 and 10, I believe even younger than that, صح?
Yeah, from much like so.
Yeah, from 7, 8, they start memorizing Ibn Ashir. Ibn Ashir is not too long, to be honest. It's just 314 lines. Come on, seriously? You're finding it very, basically a big deal. Trust me, people memorize. Al-Kafaf هذا متن الكفاف, which is literally one of high advance Maliki text. It's about 4,000 lines. Come on, 3,000 lines, and you're shocked with 10% of it. Habibi, 300 lines do nothing to you. Okay, memorize one line each day. You memorize the whole book in 1 year, 365 days, even less. You have the rest of the other 50 days for you to do whatever you want. The brother had a question. Just don't forget your question. Yes.
So I travel twice a week to go to my workplace.
Yes.
72 miles to go.
MashaAllah.
So do I need to do my qasr or normal prayer?
It depends on how far it is.
72 miles.
72 miles. If you go twice a week, basically when you go there, you stay how many days? Let's say.
Return.
You return, isn't it? If you go there, you will do your qasr until you come back. If you go twice a week, do you go consecutive days, or you go different days? Monday and Wednesday. And you're fine. You can do your qasr there. When you come back, you carry on with your normal salah, inshallah. Yes.
Well, after impurities that you spoke about before.
Yeah.
And then you gave the example of a child that you named, and then you would put the child in there.
Yeah.
So that's happening. If a child breaks wind on you,
Yeah.
does that then break your wind?
No, it doesn't.
Okay.
Because when you release wind, it doesn't come out with any substance. As only if they release wind and then everything comes out of them. All of the porridge you gave them, then that's a different story. Yes.
So in relation to that question, you mentioned something like having sexual relation with your wife in the wrong place.
Yeah.
So if the fruits come out from that wrong place, it's probably smear.
Yeah.
So in that case, the woman does she need to does it invalid to?
Yeah. If my mind doesn't fail me, no, she doesn't do wudu because it's unnatural. The Sharia does not recognize it. Because anything that the Sharia does not recognize it is invalid and prohibited straight away. I hope that makes sense. If the answer is different, I would answer you inshallah in our next class. Bismillah. Because the masail, the ulama, they have some discussion on this, and it's a very sensitive one. You can even notice how sensitive it is while they write it. They try to be basically very direct and abstract and just mentioning bam, 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 and that's it, like that. Inshallah, barakallah fi. Anyone who has a question? I can't see her. Sorry. Yes.
From the last class, I actually wrote down the question. So, for instance, if there's any ruling on the fiqh of say, assuming let me say we make an ambition for instance, and then someone says maybe something invalidates that ambition, and then you heard it saying probably like an hadith that came from maybe one of those, maybe probably Anas bin Malik, and then said he heard this or probably never saw someone doing that. How do you reconcile it from what you've read, maybe from the text, and from a direct source from hadith or point of view?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. For example, the brother is asking, if I read from a text and what you find is what the scholars have written from their own words after they've done the work of what the Sharia wants, isn't it? But then you find a hadith which says otherwise. Now you're trying to what is it? You're trying to what is the word? La hawla la quwwata illa billah. You're trying to reconcile between a hadith and a text that you read from a fiqh text. If, for example, like us, all of us, including myself, like laymen, we cannot take the hadith immediately and say we're going to work on it, because yet we don't know the authenticity of the hadith itself. Even if someone would tell you, and you would find it in Bukhari. Remember the book Sahih al-Bukhari in itself, which Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani, he has done an entire explanation on the book of Sahih al-Bukhari, and he has volumes upon volume, more than 15 volumes on explaining Sahih al-Bukhari. You notice this, that not every scholar agrees on Sahih al-Bukhari. Do you know that? That is purely authentic without a shadow of a doubt. They're not trying to say that there's a hadith in the book that they are not accepted. No. They're explaining that according to the chain of narrations, not every single hadith is sahih according to Bukhari's standards. Is that very clear? Imam al-Bukhari's standards, Muhammad ibn Ismail al-Bukhari, he had very high standards for hadith. Some scholars have differed with him when it comes to the standards of these certain hadith. They say that yes, they are authentic, but not to that standard. And you'll find them in Bukhari. So it becomes another type of science that one needs to study in order for them to understand whether this hadith is authentic or not. So that's why you notice some hadith, they are mentioned in Al-Muwatta, which is the hadith book of Al-Imam Malik. He says that I write these hadith down and I consider them so that you may see and can witness with your own eyes that I know about these hadith, but I don't use the hadith. Because he has a different hadith or he has a different interpretation other than that of the hadith which he provides there. Is that very clear? This is a bit technical, which only students of knowledge and the ulama can understand. And some of the brothers, if they want to dig deeper into this, they'll get into this. But this is how it works. A hadith is a very different science. So my advice is for the laymen, if they are reading from a certain text and they know that this text, for example, like a small text like this, not the big text, the small text like this, from the beginning to the end is authentic. Bear that in mind. Understood? It's all based on authentic hadith without a shadow of a doubt. Versus a hadith, or maybe the teaching of the Sahaba. Nothing else. But the bigger the texts get, now that's when you have to dig a little bit deeper. That's when you have to become a real student of knowledge. That's why it becomes a little bit tricky. But if you get it from small texts like these, you don't bother your mind a lot. I hope that makes sense. So you follow along with what the text provides you. That's where the issue of madhab comes in. So when you hold on to madhab, a single madhab, you have principles. You hold on to those. And then when you finish one madhab, and you're now convinced with that one madhab, you can go into other madhab and say, okay, I'll take this, I'll leave this, I won't take this. That's when you notice, once a scholar, you will notice they are Maliki scholar, maybe they are Shafi'i scholar, they are Hanbali scholar, but then there are certain issues in the deen they don't follow according to the madhab that they grew up with, or maybe what they learnt, they take from a different madhab, because they are well versed in the science to a level where they know what to take, what to leave. But for you and I, if we do that, first of all, we're going to get completely confused. And we're not going to find the path. The correct one, we're not going to find it. So we have to hold on to that one path until Allah shows us, okay, once we grow and grow and grow, then it's easy for you to take a different trajectory. I hope that answers the question.
Does it make it wrong?
Huh?
Does it make it wrong if you follow different ones?
It doesn't make it wrong, but it confuses you a lot. And that will be the last question. Inshallah ta'ala. Barakallahu feekum. I wouldn't advise you to follow different madhab. Do you get what I mean? But if you feel, I'm not telling anyone to follow this madhab per se. But if you feel comfortable to follow, ahlan wa sahlan. If you don't feel comfortable, you can stick on to your madhab that you follow. And majority of you that are in this masjid, you are ahnaf. Yeah, you're Hanafi followers. So don't follow any other madhab. And if Sheikh Badrul can teach Hanafi madhab, I would advise him to do so. Inshallah. So you can see the beauty of the scholars, how they understood this deen, inshallah. Barakallah fiqh. Assalamu alaikum. Jazakumullah khairan. I don't think if next week you're going to get this long of Q&A. You're lucky today, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum.